Hello, 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 warriors. Tina Salinas here from We Are the Voice for the Silence and Afflicted. I know it's been a while. I'd like to welcome our returning guest, Jaclyn. She has dealt with quite a bit of family court and CPS corruption. She is here to have an update. Also, I would like to share she has a petition on change.org in order to raise awareness for her child as well. She's also been a part of quite a few groups raising awareness. She's come a long way from, her fight and her struggle. So I would really hope in a lot of respects that many parents that are going through the same issues in dealings that they would take heed to, her story and realize that even through the fight and the struggle that you can stand up and still be a voice for your child along with raise awareness. There's many things, many options, groups, people to talk to, advocates, programs to get involved with. Thank you so much, Jaclyn, for being a part of the show again. And if you would like, before you start your story on updating everybody, if you could just share everybody the groups that you've been involved in and some of the events or maybe some, new exciting news that's been going on prior to your update.
Okay, yes. Thank you for having me again, Tina. So I have my own group right now, a support group, and I am in the middle of trying to get my credit going and trying to, get some money fundraised and everything like that to get my nonprofit, the paperwork and everything like that going. That is called Our Journey Towards Justice. It's only a like page. It's not a group. The group that I have right now is on, the name is #LegallyKidnapped, support group for parents battling CPS. I also work alongside amazing advocates I can't, wow, I'm just drew a blank. I'm sorry. I work with amazing advocates that are part of Family Forward Project. And they have not only been my inspiration of getting me going and, how to be the best advocate, not only for myself, but for others. Miss Karen Cook, Connie Reguly, Laura Thompson, all of them. The last time we talked, I think we did a podcast before I went to the DC rally. That was my first rally ever that I went to. We're trying to get, rallies going in every state. Right now, we do have a group amongst us advocates, like a chat room group, in which we look up laws, different content in our states, what's going on, these dishonorable judges. The good, the bad, the ugly, pretty much is what we want to bring to you guys on the Family Forward Project, the main website. And there's actually different chapters and different groups for your state. So Family Forward Project in your state, the name of your state. But it's amazing how far I've come. I didn't think, I'm slowly getting there as an advocate. I kind of got knocked down a little bit when I did get my rights taken away from me. They were, my daughter was released from my custody in 2017. My case almost went up to 5 years until June 7th of this year. But I'll get into that a little bit. But it's just amazing seeing how much support I had from people I don't even know, from the UK to Europe to everybody in the United States. My page start just me, myself, and I, and posting some content here and there, and I am almost at 1,000 followers right now and group members. And I try to talk to at least a lot of them, and I always tell everybody I'm here no matter what. I try to be there for everybody, no matter what time of day it is. We have conflicting, time zones and everything like that. But when I say I'm there for somebody, I know I am not, a lawyer. I don't have my licenses or licensure, anything like that. As simple as just looking up stuff for people because they don't know where to start. Just like me, just probably maybe you too at one point. You know, I
Yep.
didn't know what to do. I wish I knew would have known all these groups were together out there. Um, I think maybe about 3 years into my case, I just all of a sudden after my father died, I was like, please give me a sign that there's someone going to be out there for me. And all of a
Right.
sudden, all these groups are starting to show up. I was like, wow. I was like, I could have used this a couple years ago, but I'll take it, you know? So, but as far as my case, do you want me to do a little recap for what happened, or do you want me to start at just the?
Of course, yeah, because there might be some viewers that, like I said, my first page was unfortunately taken down due to a mishap with another woman that, was infiltrating
Yeah,
groups and stuff. And like I tell everybody, not everybody's in this, movement for the same reason. And that
yeah,
is unfortunate, but it's very true.
that's
So yeah, I do have to upload some of my previous podcasts, which you had
okay.
attended. So anyone that hasn't heard your story yet, let's do a little recap and then you can move on forward. But
Yeah, okay. I'll try to
again,
keep it as short, not as long. Um, okay, so I am originally from New York. I am currently in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I had a daughter with her father in 2015. January 2nd, I had her. He's currently deceased right now. I'll get into that in a little bit. Um, but I had a very good relationship with him. Sometimes it was a little rocky, we had differences and whatnot. She was well taken care of. People have known that. We have people that are in the community or in my life that a little jealous or just they didn't get their way. So let me call the hotline, and that was my in-laws. So we once after I had her, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I did struggle with addiction. I went to pain management, and as soon as they took me off of pain management, like most, maybe about 80 to 90% of people that struggle with addiction, that's how it starts, with pharmaceuticals and everything like that. I'm not ashamed. I don't care. I will tell you my story from beginning to end. Well, not end, because I'm still trying to write my own story right now. There's nothing to be ashamed of, guys. Being a drug addict. I hate that word. I hate the word junkie and everything. You just have a mishap, I consider
think
it
people
a
have to
health
understand.
condition.
I'm sorry, Ruby. I think people have to understand also that, owning it is key and taking
Yes.
responsibility is part of healing. And, we all have different mishaps in life, whether, it's drugs or mental illness, or there might be some other, gambling, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But, people make mistakes in life. Some of them are a little bit worse than others, but, guess what? If you can get back on your feet, clean yourself up and do what you need to do, I think that's what counts, for the
Exactly.
majority. And you stay on that road, and just keep seeking advice and assistance from others, because, ultimately we can't do it by ourselves. So the fact that you're even honest, and I know I said this in our last podcast too, people need to understand that you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with other people, because that's where the true healing comes from. So,
Exactly.
you've done that part, and a
Thank
lot
you.
of
Appreciate
people,
that.
yeah, a lot of people need to understand how important that is. So I'm glad you're able to actually openly express that and feel comfortable, without any hesitation. I give you a lot of props for that.
I wasn't always comfortable saying it, like, especially with CPS, but I learned, I had my first case in 2016 when my in-laws tried to pull this the first time, like, because I didn't want to stay with them. I wanted to go back home. I had so many trial and errors of getting clean. And every time I wanted to get clean, I want to go back home. That's my comfort zone. That's my support. And
Right.
they didn't like it because, they thought I was taking away my daughter, from them. That wasn't the case. So that case came and went, ended. And then back in 2017, I relapsed several times. I can't even tell you how many times I went to rehab. Nothing wrong with that, guys. But I went to rehab after my uncle. He was like my brother. He died of overdosing, and I kind of lost it a little bit because I was going through other stuff. But I went to try to go back with my mother again, and they called CPS. And now when I was in, now this is, I was in the middle of traveling to South Carolina. I was coming from upstate New York to, we were stopping by in like the inner city. It's about four hours from upstate where I was living, guys. So my in-laws called CPS again and told them exactly where I was staying for the night. So CPS pretty much told me, got my back against the wall and said, "Hey, you can't leave right now. You're in New York State right now. Your case started. That's it." So I had nothing to hide. I was clean actually at the time. I was just struggling staying clean, and I took several drug tests and whatnot. They came up, clean. Um, I complied with, I was willing to comply with their safety plan and everything like that. The order protection, that was the last thing they told me to do because they couldn't get me on anything else. Um, they even have in their notes every time since day one that she was well taken care of. Even law enforcement has said that. So that's the gist of how it went. But the last day, right before they took her, when I was supposed to get the order of protection, I say this to everybody, it just amazes me that I was willing to go. I stayed there for hours at the courthouse. I wasn't being called for hours, and I went up there finally, and I was like, "Listen, on the calendar, they told me no, come back tomorrow and have, I guess, CPS worker figure out what's going on with the paperwork that had to be submitted to the judge, and signed and everything like that." So long story short, went out for the rest of the day, came back at 10 o'clock, called the social worker, sitting there yelling and screaming at me like I'm just somebody on the street that, no respect for or anything like that. I guess because I have a case, I'm just trash, I guess. I don't know. So she said, "Just come tomorrow. Don't let it happen again." So I go there with my daughter because I wanted to see her, wanted to get signed. No problem. I didn't think anything of it. I'm not naive. I was there maybe about 4 times before they took her, and they didn't take her then. So I was like, okay, they're not going to take her now. So I go, I think it was October 24th of 2017. I go there. They said, "You know what? Instead of her going with the courtroom again with you or waiting at the courtroom, why don't you just leave her in the game room?" They had a little game room for them. I was like, okay, whatever. And when I left her, and they took her to the back and they closed the door, they said, "Listen, we have the power to do emergency removal." And that's when they took her. Didn't give me any kind of warrant, didn't give me any kind of anything signed by the judge or any kind of inkling of like, "Hey, we're going to take your daughter." All they told me is we weren't going to go to get the order protection thing that day. We were going to go upstairs to vacate my warrant that they were going to take me because they were saying I wasn't producing my child and possible kidnapping or whatever the case was. So that's why they called me into the office that day. So pretty much from October 2017 to, let me think, to about October 2017 until mid 2018, I was in South Carolina. Kept going back and forth. Didn't know what to do. I felt awful leaving my daughter up there. I felt that they can use that against me, and they did in the end. So you know what? Eventually, by 2019, I was starting to get clean and everything by, I think, the end of 2018, because that just really did it. I lost it. I'm not going to admit it. I'm going to admit it, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It hurts me that they're actually using the worst 8 months out of that whole almost 5 years against me into why they took my daughter. So I did all the services and everything like that. I did my parenting classes 3 times in 2 different states. I got a whole bunch of recommendations. I've done mental health requirements twice. Signed off for that, the counselor. What else? Just everything else. Besides the classes, I got my housing. I came from a homeless drug addict in the city of New York on subways nothing to eat, nothing. Like maybe I'm a little heavier now, but I was like maybe 120 pounds soaking wet. Just didn't give a crap because it took my life away from me. So the reason I came down here finally, yes.
I think, hold on one second, Jaclyn, I'm sorry. I think when people, go through that situation, because it's very traumatic, and again, not many people that are stuck in these situations, and I'm not necessarily stating, per se the drug addiction, but just having their child removed, and their whole life being tipped upside down. None of us are emotionally prepared for that. Just like we don't have a handbook to raise children, none of us are emotionally prepared for that. And the problem is that I think whether or not you were using drugs or not, any normal person in that situation and predicament, wind up using drugs, or they would wind up losing,
or even take a drink or something.
Because your kids, especially people that really care, of course, and then that are true parents and protective parents and really love their children. They're doing everything in their power for their kids. In your fight that you continued on for, that alone right there can just drive you emotionally insane. It's like your heart being ripped away from you.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? The problem with the system is that they feel that they can intervene, and tell us as parents how to raise, what to do, how to do it with our children.
And most of them don't have children to be.
And then when we have, it's true. And most of them, feel as if when we become, traumatized and have these emotions as a natural human being would, all of a sudden we're pegged as crazy. Well, let's go take a psychiatric evaluation, or, now you need drug and alcohol groups because now you probably are using drugs. It's just like, how dare you think that you can make such a dramatic move in somebody's life like that and think that person is not going to be affected? And not only us, I mean, ultimately our children are scarred for the rest of their life. They
don't think they're scarred or anything. They think they're in the best situation, removed away from us. I mean, there are some people that do. I'm sorry, guys. There are some people that need their children taken away, even after definitely. There might not be family that they can go with. They might be in the same position as the parents with drugs or crime or anything like that.
Right.
So it's just like you were saying, like, if you start showing emotion after they do take our children, and I learned throughout the years, even if you don't show emotion or not too much, they still peg you as crazy or mentally something wrong with you. It's like you can't win. And, they tell you to do A, B, C, and D, but they don't realize that we're still human beings. And some of us do have mental health issues. We have to focus on, we don't have time to focus on us. Let's be real, guys. We don't. We have to do all these requirements, and then they expect us to be happy. That, I'm okay. Everything's perfect. Everything. No, that's not the case.
And I think the saddest part, though, in your situation, is like you said, you did this for 5 years, and they took 8 months out of the 5 years, and you still used it against you. And instead of giving you that benefit of the doubt, not that you were looking for, a pat on the back, but, you got to a point in your life to where, you fell down, you needed to pick yourself back up, you had that assistance, but you were doing what you needed to do. And instead of allowing you to, continue to grow and then regain a relationship back with your child, which ultimately that's what they should be doing. That's what CPS and family court alone should stand for: reuniting families together, keeping families together. Instead it's like, I've seen worse situations where children were returned back to the homes and the parents were still using, and didn't complete any drug and alcohol groups, and the children were actually placed in a worse situation because now we have, sexual abuse going on, and then it turns into physical abuse. I mean, it's an ongoing repetitive history, and it kind of makes you wonder, like, what is it? What is it about certain families that they peg, and criminalize and attack? Like it's the you can't even call it a union gang. That's
I think once you're in the system, you're always in the system, and it's like Big Brother. You're always watched.
Oh yeah.
Because not for nothing, I gotta figure out who to talk to about this. I don't believe in coincidences in life, because my grandmother in 1946 was adopted by, I call them my great grandparents. That's my family. Um, she was adopted at like 3 months old from the same foster care agency at the same location. They have, mind you, they have 4 locations, the same location as where my daughter is right now. I think that's insane.
I remember you said that you work with Connie regularly, and I remember a podcast when I had first started following her, and she had said something about it's they try to peg it as a generational curse.
Yeah.
And actually what it is, it's actually generational harassment, because you're right.
Yeah, too, yeah.
I know a lot of people that were in the system. I myself too. My great grandfather came straight from off the boat from Sicily, okay? And all 5 of his children, were separated. And then when they got older and had children, guess what? All their kids were separated. I have my kids that I have, and not a lot of people know this story, but my 2 older girls that are 21 and 18 right now, they were taken for 2.5 years. I was luckily able to get them out of the system, but it was over false accusations that they had no proof of. And now we fast forward to my little one that's going on 7, and we have loads of proof. And guess what? CPS won't take parental rights away from dad or do anything. So you're right. I truly believe that there is some type of target against certain families for whatever reason. And it's not us. It's not the generational curse. It's literally generational harassment,
And it's sick. I feel like they also too have like a certain preference. These people, these baby snatchers, whatever the hell you want to call them, you look and see the demographics of these children. They're white, black, Hispanic, below 5 years old when they first go into foster care. Look at their parents. They come from little to somewhat education. It's like the same pattern before the harassment starts, of like that generational harassment. They're looking for and it's like a puppy mill. They're looking for a certain breed where they can make so much money off of these children, and it's disgusting.
Look at it this way too. Look at it this way. Protective parents are going to constantly fight for their children, correct?
They don't like that. Yeah.
Well, they do in a way, because they want that money. They figure, well, these parents are going to keep coming in and fighting and putting in petitions and violations and appeals and this and that. So I mean, of course, they peg us as criminals and whistleblowers, right? Exactly. And you're right, they can't stand it, but in a way they can, because they're still receiving money in their pocket. Now you have the abusers and the victimizers and the perpetrators that actually should be just open and shut case. Slam the gavel down. They should be criminally charged. First incident, no ands, ifs, buts about it. Once you violate a kid, that's it. Your rights should be taken from you. You violated that child's rights, because ultimately that child has human rights as well. They don't. They allow the perpetrator to, and they knowingly condone it. They allow the perpetrator to continue victimizing the child, which that again alone is money, because the child is going to need now what? Maybe
therapy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So they know exactly what they're doing. All these programs that are supposed to be out there to help these kids and, families and everything like that. It's like, it's such a contradiction. It's a total opposite. It's completely disgusting. I spoken to a lady a couple of weeks ago, and I was just like, these people take oaths, and they're supposed to be following rules and laws and what have you. And as much as we want to reform, what purpose this is going to be, I mean, we're going to do it regardless. Okay. Because that's our fight. What purpose is going to be if these same people, the same people that are violating our rights and our children's rights, are still in office? And even though they're taking the oath and they're supposed to be abiding by these rules, they're not following the rules that they have now stipulated in front of them. Who's going to hold them accountable? How do you get these people out and filter in new people that actually care?
I think it's worse when they're court appointed, and that's one of the points that's in my petition is like, there should be no court appointed judges anymore. I'm sorry. Like, we need to vote them in ourselves. They're not representing these big time, you know what I'm saying? Billionaires and stuff like that. They're representing us, little lower.
I would like to know, do you know, I think it was like, Jesus, my son is 6, and I know it had to be before he was born, around that time. I know witnesses were allowed, family members, friends were allowed to go in the courtroom. Do you remember that when witnesses were able to just sit there and watch and
You
advocate?
still can.
Well, a lot of people complain, and I know here in our city, they will not allow anybody besides the petitioner, the respondent, and your lawyers in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Unless it's in criminal court, yes. But family court, they refuse to allow anybody. If you want an advocate there, you want a family, a friend there.
I know they gave me problems when we did the online, hearings and stuff like that. Once the pandemic started, that they didn't want me giving the code to everybody and like, here, come in. Like, but I don't know who these people were, but I know there's people sitting in the back of the courtroom every time we had something in person. I don't know who they were and stuff like that.
Even court watchers. I've heard a lot of people complaining. There's been a lot of hoopla all over the internet where, court watchers are in certain programs and, advocates that are trying to sit there and look out for the betterness for and the welfare of these people and their treatment. And the court watchers are also being refused. And lawfully, legally, they don't have to explain who they are besides just saying, hey, I'm a court watcher. That's it. They don't have to personally identify themselves. So it's just like, when did the laws change where you can't even have someone sit in the courtroom and watch what's going on? When it comes down to the judges don't want to hear, or they don't want their corruption to get out there. That's what it comes down to it.
And it's before you mentioned something about children being abused and whatnot. God forbid we say something about the foster parents, whatever you want to call them. That was an issue I had with. Right now, I'm torn between, like, first of all, I'm trying to swallow my pride as much as I can because it's only been 2-3 months since I've talked to my daughter. It feels like it's been 5 years already, and I'm sitting in the background pretty much watching their Instagram. They know I'm watching them because I think there's something that comes up that shows who's watching your stuff. But I mentioned in the trial that there was inappropriate pictures of my daughter. She was 4, almost 5, going to ballet, putting her shoes on, her little slippers, and her legs were spread open. No, like, it was very clear. If she had tights on, they're very clear. You saw everything. She had underwear on, but still, that's like child porn. If I were to do that, her real father would do that, we would have been locked up, Right. But I mentioned that in the court. He told the judge, I was just taking a picture of her practicing tying her shoes. So that's the time and the place to do it and put it on there. And they went with it. They like, okay, that's fine. Another thing I picked up in trial was I told them that he has an addiction. You getting on me took my child for addiction that I was trying to get help for, that I turned up clean in the beginning. And he's sitting here writing on Instagram about he's been sober for 4 months. All right, guys, how many years did I say? If you paid attention to what we're saying right now, how many years has my case been open? Almost 5 years.
Right.
So that wasn't an issue or anything like that. So I got yelled at. This was in the beginning of the trial. I got yelled at for keep bringing up Facebook and Instagram and all social media posts that they were posting, even though it was helping my case. Before that, before I want to get right into the trial, it's just sad how I had to find the strength because I got pregnant in 2019, right before I came down here. Again, I was in an abusive relationship, not with her father, with somebody else that I thought was my friend, and he was just a little bit crazy. They found about that too. Got out of that with my father, but he got sick and passed away soon after, so I didn't have a place to go, and I was pregnant. It was just too much. I wanted to keep my child because that's my, beliefs. I don't believe in abortion, so I went down south, and I made something of myself. Slowly but surely, I started getting up on my feet. And my totally stable? No, not at all. But coming from being homeless in the street, an addict, to having my place where my son has a playroom and his own room where he could put his head down and sleep at night near the beach. That's beautiful. That wasn't good enough for them, though. I had an ICPC done right before trial. They put it in. Never acknowledged it. They had to redo my ICPC, put in for the application, and I think they were still trying to get it done until the day of they terminated my rights. So when the beginning of the court case, now you have your fact-finding portion of the trial. If you're not familiar, if you didn't get that far, great, I'm glad. But if you get that far, fact-finding and dispositional. Fact-finding, you're talking about your accusations that happened. You're talking about just the investigational portion. And up until I think it's up to 19 months since the case started. That's where supposedly they look at, and that's what helps determine if you permanently neglected your children or your child. Now, when we first started the case in the other videos I had with Tina, I had a horrible beginning. I'm not going to lie. You took my daughter away from me. That was my life. But by 2018, December, I was in a program, stable. I was stable in a program. It's called MAT treatment, Medicated Assistant Treatment Program. Guys, that works wonders. People don't consider it treatment, being sober, because it's medication helping you. Whatever works for you is what works for you. And I don't give a damn who, Charlie or Kimberly or whoever in AA or NA. I don't give a crap. You're not coming home with me. You're not helping me with my son, or you know what I'm saying? So you need to back up. Whatever works for me works for me. And eventually, guys, you can always get off of it. It's not permanent. Nothing lasts forever in life, and nothing, so it's just, anyway. So I did somewhat of programs until 2018. They weren't stable. I was still getting, still using, but from 2018 to 2019, the end, when I was up there before I came here again, I did everything. I was halfway done with my program. This is before they filed for the TPR. And every time we had a mediation, they kept saying, come on, you could do it. All you got to do is stay focused. Don't get high no more. Don't do this. And you're fine. You will get your daughter back. Trust me. That's all I kept hearing until the end. So I believed it because, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing what was on their contract. That's literally a contract. So I don't understand. Everywhere else you go in life, you break a contract, what happens? You have some kind of recourse for the person that broke the contract. But why not in family court? I don't understand that. So I did everything. And in the midst of everything, and the other video I had with, the interview with Tina, my grandmother applied for custody, foster care, and just straight up said my granddaughter will sign her rights over to me. But I couldn't. See, as a parent, even if you're not, you're not wed, you're out of wedlock, the child's out of wedlock, and you have a partner, even if you're not with them, as long as they're alive and breathing, you cannot, as a mother, sign over your child to a family member, because they still have the right to say, hey, I want my child. I want to be around my child. So that's what my daughter's father did for a while. Before he died, he passed away. I don't know how he passed away, to be quite honest. I thought it was heart failure, but these courts are telling me, and they're running with, that he committed suicide from overdose. And if that happened, that was the day that they denied his visitation. He had a whole bunch of gifts and presents and stuff right before her birthday. And if that is true, then that's the only way I can see what happened. And he was doing good. He was, even though it doesn't look like he did good, but he was sober for about 2 years. It was rough for him. He had a rough life. I wasn't there with him. No, we fought. I was, always helped him get back on track. Um, but that was his final moments of like seeing his daughter, knowing about his daughter was never got her back, and most of her life she was in the system. That's an awful way, you know. But to think about it, I guess. So I came down here, and the trial happened, and it was supposed to happen a year before. I'm trying to think. I'm sorry, guys. April of 2020, it was supposed to happen, but out of nowhere, after my daughter's father died, there was these random ass cousins that came out of the woodworks like roaches, and they wanted to apply for custody. Never came out of nowhere from start, but they came out of nowhere, applied for custody, and I did a little searching and digging myself. The lawyer actually represented the judge in her own custody battle or divorce hearing personally. That was her lawyer, is what I'm saying.
Wow.
I made a big thing about it. No one wanted to do nothing about it. That didn't get me anywhere. They just didn't like, once I started getting sober, I started getting mouthy a little bit. I was very professional about how I got mouthy, but they just didn't like, oh crap, like she's not who we thought she was, they just didn't like it. I made a lot of complaints because my daughter, and I brought this up in court in the dispositional, I had to bring it up, is that her grades were awful. But let me get back on track. I'm sorry, guys. The fact finding, like I said, was up to the 19 months from the very start to 19 months. So I lost that part because there was times I didn't see her because I was doing awful. I didn't want her to see me like that, and I told the judge that. I was very transparent with her during the trial. She kind of gave me kind of hope, and she's very narcissistic, I guess, because I felt that she was going to give me back my daughter after I was very open with her, and she was very nice, letting me take breaks during the trial. She looked like she had a heart for once. I've never talked to her in the 4 or 5 years, and all of a sudden she's talking to me and looks like she gives a crap, Very deceiving. But I lost that. My lawyer told me I was going to lose that. That was it. She said, so we're going to prepare for the dispositional. Dispositional is when everything you've done, pretty much the whole entire case, but more specifically, what you're doing now, up to what you're doing now to get your child back or your children back, like your programs, your the other part of the list that they tell you to do, get a job, get housing, everything like that. So that was looking very hopeful for me because I exceeded of what they told me to do. I had a plan B, which was my grandmother, who passed the foster care classes and got her license actually 3 times. But they didn't give her my child because they did not want to devastate the foster parents.
So the foster parents were more important than keeping family together, pretty much.
Oh, so yeah, even though they said they didn't want her and they were going to get a divorce because of her. And that was brought up in the trial, but they said, the judge and the lawyer said, hey, people say things sometimes. And I cut everybody off and I said, I don't give a damn how mad I'm at my kids. I never say I never wanted you. What kind of foster parents are you?
That would worry me greatly, just to even hear that come from a foster parent. And I kind of wonder, I'm just curious, were these people, the fact that, he's even posting and felt comfortable enough to post on Instagram, not only the inappropriate picture of your daughter, because, from knee down, that's appropriate, I guess, for a picture for shoelace tying in between, her legs to see her private area, I think is just highly inappropriate, especially with the outfit that she had on. But like, if he's comfortable enough to post that along with, him being sober, for so long, knowing he's supposedly a foster parent, I'm just kind of curious to wonder, was there ever a background check? Like, did you ever question
That's
that?
what
Or,
I asked. And I kept pressing every lawyer. That was the third lawyer up until I had my trial. I was working with my third lawyer. And I said, listen, there needs to be some kind of other thorough background check. I don't know what kind of tier they use, because there's different tiers to background checks. But every documentation I'm looking in and all the notes, it's always listing her as a foster parent. Now, I would think they would say Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan. Yeah, I'm going to say their names right now because I don't care anymore. But it would say Kathy and Tyrone Sullivan. It wouldn't just say Kathy Sullivan. Now, up until 2019, it only mentioned him. Now, everybody thought they broke it and they split because ever since my daughter got her teeth, she had surgery with her teeth. She got very just rude and arrogant that day, Kathy, because my daughter chose me to go in the room with her. They only could pick one person, and chose me ultimately to go with her before she knocked out from the anesthesia. So after that day, I've never seen her again. I never heard about her, and you would think you would come to trial, but the only stuff that's ever came up about Miss Kathy was that she was pushing for a divorce after being married to her husband after 20 years because she just couldn't take it anymore. That didn't worry them.
I wonder, being that, how your situation turned out, unfortunately, and I do apologize. Have you tried to recently look her up and maybe, try to generate some information from her at all? Would you think she would even oblige?
I looked her up and I was mind blown. I was trying to hope it was another Kathy Sullivan. She has 18 addresses since her actual child was born. She has a criminal record of being arrested once, at least, in Dallas, Texas. And meanwhile, she was supposed to be living in. She had arrested in Texas, supposedly, I think in 2007, but she was living in New York. She was a resident in New York. So there's a lot of aliases that came up with her. It just looked shady from not even purchasing the background app. If I saw that already, I couldn't imagine. So it's truly disheartening and unfortunate that, you have to have money to do all this crap, or you have to know the right people to help you to overlook that you don't have money. So right now, I'm trying to work my ass off.
And even with that information provided, when you look up this information on people,
I told my lawyer that
there's a great amount of conflict of interest, and they still don't even abide by that. I had a woman recently that I can't disclose her personal information or her name, and I feel so bad because she really needs help bad. The judge was told, she found him on Facebook and was told that, there's a great conflict of interest because he's related, or he's in, some type of sibling relationship with this person that's in her case. And he was confronted by it. And by him being approached with that, he basically told her she was 100% wrong for looking him up on Facebook, and he took it as a threat.
Public information.
Which is right, which is funny because, if you're on Facebook, exactly, it is public information, along with, it amazes me how personal they feel, and how attacked they feel. But they don't feel the same way, when it comes to them stealing our children, or threatening the lives of our children, or putting our children in harm's way, or jailing an innocent parent.
Why do you think they have qualified immunity or whatever type of bullshit immunity they have? Like, if you were doing the right thing, why do you have a special protection against, for you if something happens? Or they have those, I don't know what it's called, guys, but I don't know if you ever heard about it, Tina, but they have like these accounts or these different places where they invest or put money away in case they do get locked up, that it comes out and it's like a fund or something like that. I forgot. I got to look it up. But
yeah, I think wasn't there a video circulating around the internet about that?
Yeah, I think, and then and after that, I just started seeing it everywhere, and I forgot what it's called, excuse me for that, but if you're doing the right thing, why the hell do you have that for? Why?
Right.
So, as far as the dispositional, after that guy, after the family member I had never seen in my life, and then get this, they kept pushing off the dates and pushing off the dates because I got a new lawyer because the other lawyer, I just saw my case just sinking, even though it's sunk already. It was gonna go faster if I didn't get rid of her. So
let people know that it doesn't matter if you have low income or high income, because they still work for the courts. And if it's in the best interest of the courts to have that child, guess what? You could even lose $10,000-$20,000. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't really matter. They're not specifically just attacking low income families either. You know what I mean? If your child falls in that category of they want that kid, they're going to have that kid, and they're going to take everything from you in order to get that child. Yeah. You know, that's the sick, pure evilness behind it. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend of mine. She very close to me. Her grandson was taken and several years ago. It's been 3, almost 4 years, and she has a paid attorney. She has actually 2 paid attorneys, and it's always some bullshit with them. Never, guys, even if you have a paid attorney or these, you like to call them public pretenders, they still work for the courts. They still go out golfing with each other. They still see each other day in and day out in these courtrooms. They are.
How about the law guardians?
Yeah.
How about don't you get a kick out of them too?
Yeah, exactly. But they have a special relationship with them. Like, they didn't want to get rid of my judge because they literally told me in the beginning, the first 2 lawyers, that they were scared of her. Because
they're intimidated. Yeah, and that's not. Do you think that's a reasonable excuse to say, "Hey, I don't want to fight your case properly, and I don't want to stand up for something that's right because I'm intimidated. I might lose my job." Well, guess what? If you have to lose your job, I'm sorry to say this, to do what's right, then I think that by God, that's what you should be doing, because this is saving an innocent child's life.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They don't. They don't. It's disgusting.
And yeah, it is. And so we in the part of the dispositional, they started talking about my grandmother getting her license and everything. They grilled the crap out of my 75-year-old grandmother. Never had a parking ticket in her life, no background, no nothing. I can't even say anything bad about her. I mean, sometimes we get into it. We're family, but wonderful woman. My daughter has lived with her before in the past. She was listed as protector in the last case I had. South Carolina was ready in a heartbeat, willing to give my child to her. But New York either messed up the paperwork, never submitted it, or even forgot about it the last time. And it caused a delay. They talked down to my grandmother and said, "Hey, you applied 3 times, like you said, correct?" Grandmother says yes. They said, "Well, why did it take you another year, or why did it take you a year to apply the 4th time? If you really wanted your great-grandchild, wouldn't you have applied right away?" I was like, and I interrupted, and I said, "Well, shouldn't you have gotten it right the first time or the second time?"
3 times?
Yeah, exactly. I was told I was, to pretty much stop. And it
Don't
was
speak the truth. You're not allowed to. Don't you know that by now? Come on.
It was just ridiculous. People that started, and I noticed, I don't know why this happens, but people that started in the case, like the certain like CPS workers and stuff, they were not there. They knew how to run their mouth the whole entire 5 years. I'm pretty sure this happens with everybody else. You're not going to notice certain people are going to be in court. They like to hurry the shit up once they see, because you know what? Matter of fact, I didn't know, my lawyer knew that the foster parents, they never have a dime to get anything from my daughter. She always has hand-me-downs, can never do activities with me because it's always too much. So, but they had enough money. They had enough money to get a lawyer, though. an adoption attorney.
You know what's funny is being part of the system myself as a child, unfortunately, foster parents get a decent amount of money.
Oh, of
Not
course.
only do they get a decent amount of money, they get clothing vouchers for kids.
Yes.
So, you know, if
I
this
think like every
person,
3 to 4 months or so, like that, every season, pretty much. Yeah.
yeah, so you know, to hear you say that you've seen his post on Instagram, I hate to keep seeing this stuff, but it kind of speaks volumes because it's like, dude, you probably weren't just sober for that 4 months, you know what I mean? And if you were, how long prior to that were you an alcoholic or a druggie or what have you? Maybe that there's not all that information put out there. It's just the point that they were willing to take your child from you and place her in not only a stranger's home, but in a stranger's home that clearly didn't, and it was evident that he was not properly taking care of her.
And that's
Along with,
all I know is what I see on social media. It can be worse
oh
because
yeah,
not for
yeah,
nothing, my daughter, when I visited her before, actually it was the day before trial, they said, "Oh, you got to see her." They used that against me because I came down here and I was scared to go back to New York by myself. I didn't have money to have put all my family members on a train or a bus or a plane to go see her for 3 hours. That's all they would let me see her. They
and
tried
there
to.
wasn't a place closest that, like, did when you found out the location of where she was going, like, did you or your lawyer even bother to say, hey, I know you were probably distraught, but I mean, maybe your lawyer, did they even bother to say, hey, this is quite a while away? It's like they purposely set you up for failure, you know what I mean?
Well, when they took her, I was mid trip. I was like traveling from home, took all my belongings, like I was moving, and to go down south. So it's like, like you're going, okay, you're from New York, Tina, and you're going to visit somebody in Washington, D.C.,
Mm-hmm.
and something happens, someone calls CPS. They will stop you mid state somewhere and they would take your children, and that's it, even though you don't live there. That something has to be done with that. That's trafficking right there.
There's
Against
got to
my
be some
will.
jurisdiction. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's got to be some violation of jurisdiction somewhere along the line.
Well, I said that in the trial too. I said, listen, I was like, she lived with my grandmother most of her life before you guys took her. And I have something that's notarized saying if anything were to happen, she would have temporary custody.
Mm-hmm.
They overlooked that. Um, we kept asking them over and over again of why, hey, why didn't my grandmother get her? So the first lawyer I had told my grandma, listen, your reports, your background checks, your applications, everything's beautiful. It speaks for itself. You don't need any representation in court. Don't ever listen to somebody and say you don't need a representation in court. You find out on your own, guys. So my grandmother just listened. I didn't know they had this conversation. I wish I would have. Um, so for years she never had anybody to represent her. And I think by 2019, the very first time we were going to use her license so she can come down here, it was for 29 days or so. It was a weird amount of days. So she was going to come down here. Then it changed to I think 2 weeks, and then it went down to nothing. She's not coming. So we asked the foster people not to say nothing to her. Wait till we had a conversation. This is when I was up in New York at the time. So we asked them not to say anything. They said something, but long story short, it came back to the next time we went to court. Hey, Alexis doesn't want to go because she's scared to get on a plane. That was their exact words. She was scared to get on a plane. Not scared of you, not scared of the dog, not scared of anybody. Scared to get on a plane. She was 3, almost 4. So around the time we had trial, they asked me, they had the nerve to ask me, hey, we need permission from you, even though because you still have your rights. Is it okay for your daughter to go to California to go be in a wedding of some people we just met in New York that so
What?
happen to like your daughter? I was like, so my daughter can travel. She's not scared to travel all the way across the country, but
Right.
she's scared to travel to her family that she still talks about and still misses, and it's only 600 miles away. Give me a break. It's an hour flight. Are you kidding me? So when I used that, like, I was like pretty much my own co-counsel, pretty much. My lawyer kept saying, like, stop, I will talk. So, because I talked a little too much sometimes, and the way that they turn, shit around, it's awful. So, but they said that, no, we never said she didn't want to go down there because she was scared to get on an airplane. We said because she simply does not like your family. That was the first time we had, and that really did something to my grandmother when they said that.
And that alone right there, I mean, should have been a violation of the court order, because you already, there was a court order.
Oh, I never got any unsupervised visitation, but they were using that against me. I kept asking for years, hey, let her come down here. I have my own place, and before I have my place here, she can come to my grandmother's house. Even if I had to stay out of the house until she left, we were willing to do whatever. I was like, I don't care if even CPS down here has to monitor or pop up even in the middle of the night. I'll do whatever to get my child home. So they used that against me not seeing her. Right before or during trial, when they were doing the second ICPC, first of all, they were supposed to do an ICPC years ago when I first got down here. They said supposedly when the parent moves out of state or whatever, when different states are involved with each other, you're supposed to get automatically an ICPC. I never heard of that. I know for visitation, you don't need it, but I found out ICPCs is what attaches the kid back to the state that they're coming from. So I cannot just snatch my child once she gets here from New York to South Carolina and say, hey, I want to go to Tennessee now. It says that she has some kind of relations back to New York and blah, blah, blah. So that's the only way they do ICPCs. That's what I was told from a lawyer and from a worker. But it's just crazy, because it's just, I'm trying to think of the words to say right now. Just how this court case went. They used that against me, not seeing her for 2 years, and then when they got to the ICPC part, I had to write who was in the household. I had to write that I had my son. I hid my son for 2 years, and I feel like an awful mother for hiding my child. I am so proud of him, because I'm proud of both my kids, to be honest. When I told you in the beginning, I had a problem with addiction, and I wasn't planning on being pregnant or getting pregnant. I can't really necessarily have any children, so both my children are very, like, two miracle children. So when I found that I was pregnant, I was in a methadone treatment facility. And right before that, I said, I was like, I don't feel good, Mom. I was like, I want to come off of this. It's like, maybe it's just making my system out of whack. So one of their requirements is to, pretty much do like a physical and take like your, take blood work and see if you're pregnant. Because if you're pregnant, you come off of methadone, your chances of miscarrying are very high. So that's how I found out I was pregnant with my son. So he was full term. He was in NICU for about a month, and he made it. He was fine. Came home. There's nothing wrong with him. He's a beautiful little boy. I post pictures and videos all day long of him. He's a survivor, just like his sister. So I hid him for 2 years because I did not want them to take him. And I told them that. I said, you guys really did a number on me that, first of all, I don't know what I would do if you guys took him. I'd probably wind up in jail. And I'm not trying to do this to like be big and bad. I probably would black out and be in jail. They said, oh, we can't trust you if you're hiding a whole child. I was like, that was your fault. We went back and forth. And then I tried to say, you're really going to take her away from her sibling? So when I told her this year, March of this year, that she had a brother, she was off. Of course she was. She didn't understand it. She says, "Mommy, why did you get me a baby?" So, well, not mommy. She calls me mom and Jack, guys, because she calls them mom and dad. So once I started bringing the brother up.
So
yeah.
I'm sorry, Jackie. So, I honestly just want to say that you are not the first person to have those feelings. And I know there's a way out. Some people would say, why the heck would somebody do that? Unless you're in that situation, you can't judge somebody. And then other people would say, yeah, if I was in that situation, I would do the same thing, because honestly, a lot of people don't know this. It's unlawful for them to take children away, a new child that comes into the home, take that child away just because there's an existing case going on. They would actually have to file new charges in a new case pertaining to that child and that individual. And that's what a lot of parents don't understand. But in your situation, again, what it is it's the intimidation, the scared. You did everything a normal parent would feel and want to do. I've seen situations where parents have actually taken their children and ran out of state, even with an ongoing case going on. So, I mean,
that's what they're trying to say I did. That's what they're trying to say I did. They didn't care about anything else of why I left. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, and it's sad, because ultimately that's what you would want to do. Any parent would feel fearful that, oh my God, I have another child. They're going to take this child away, and now I have to worry about fighting for this child as well. It's very scary, and they do become, if you're not fully educated with dealing with CPS, to those that are either just starting their journey or their case, yes, it can become very intimidating and scary. But there's a lot of people out here on the internet now that you can reach out to. There's
so many. Tina.
Is it called Judicialpedia? I think.
Yeah, Judicialpedia.
That came up. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, people can find out a lot of information out there.
Parents assisting parents. Miss Amy does that. Of course, Miss Connie with her group, family. I can't even think right now. The Family Forward Project. There's so many of them. When we get off of here, I'll start posting more, because I talk to these people regularly. A lot of people, advocates, like, to get off subject. A lot of advocates or so-called advocates like to compete with each other. A lot of them do it for clout. Right. How are you taking somebody's misery and grief and profiting from it, or do whatever may have you? Like, it's just awful.
So, you're right, just like we said in the beginning, like, some people are just in this for the wrong reason. But there are give some parents out there a little hope. Even through Jackie's story, she was able to still find some good people out there.
Oh yeah, of course. Yes.
And that's what our point is right now, is that, yeah, you're going to have some haters. You're going to have some people down the line that are going to try to use and abuse you as well, because they're going to victimize you, because themselves are narcissists and abusers. And you got to think they prey on people, in our situations. But this is something that people have to prepare themselves with emotionally. Once you've walked into Pandora's box, meaning CPS has opened that door, unfortunately, there is no turning back. What you need to do, and the best thing you need to do, is educate yourself. Resources, look people up, get into movements and events, and we talk about that all the time. And I'll just remind everybody when we close. But intimidation is the key factor of why so many parents is bad, and as much as they care about them, they give up.
People also think if you're honest, that's automatically going to close your case. And no offense, but
use it against
and that's
you.
Not. Yeah, they'll turn every little thing that you said, even if you said it using the wrong diction or tone, they're gonna think, oh, you're high, or why'd you say it like that? It's like seriously,
they're not your friends.
Yeah,
they're not your friends. Yeah.
So, but with the trial lasted for a whole damn year, and they kept using and saying, I'm going to pull up what she said. Hold on. They kept using and saying that it was our fault, pretty much, of why this lasted as long. I was like, how do you figure? I was like, you kept postponing everything. But let me see if I could pull up of what I was telling you before. I'm sorry. I was pulling up. I have the transcripts. It took me. So right now we're in a Supreme Court appellate division. And I got a new lawyer. I even got, mind you, even when I'm looking for this right now, I just got a letter. I was being very nice to the lawyer that I had. It wasn't her fault we lost. I think she could have fought a little bit more than what she did. She did tell me in the beginning when I first got her that, hey, you need to do a conditional surrender, which a conditional surrender is to sign over your rights in hopes, actually, because I don't say in return, because in hopes that the foster parents would let you see them. Because I learned that it's not an actual agreement or it's going to be upheld in court, and it's an actual contract, Tina. It's at the discretion of these foster parents. So they're always saying, do conditional surrender, conditional surrender. They have a name for it. They have everything for it. You would think it'd be legit. So they said, do that. It's either we're taking your rights away or you're going to lose them. So I said, listen, my daughter.
But you completed everything though, right?
Yeah, why would I do that? Why would I come this far to do a conditional surrender? First of all, yes, thank you for reminding me of that. I was like, I would have done that years ago. Meanwhile, I don't know why you guys did it. If you guys were so focused on taking my rights and you guys knew what you were doing, why didn't you guys do that when I wasn't doing the right thing?
It's like they were taunting her with you, they're taunting and dangling her, and that's even worse, because they're making you feel as if you have a chance of getting your child back, and then here you go, you get to the hearing, and it's like, oh, well, we don't really care, sleep it all away that you did, kudos to you, but you know what?
Exactly, and the only thing that I did wrong, and I'm going to admit, is my attendance was very poor with her, because there was a couple of times where she looked at me, and she was kind of like, feel me out, like there's something wrong with mommy, pretty much. Because there was another time, the third time, where she looked at me like that, and she said something privately to the worker or to the foster mother, saying, hey, because they're always telling her, hey, mommy's not doing good and she's sick. I hate when they say that, but they shouldn't be saying anything to her. But that's another story, another topic. But they kept telling her I'm sick and, blase. She finally said to somebody, hey, I think my mom's doing better. And they looked at each other supposedly, and they were like, how do you know, Lexi? And they said, because I could see it in her eyes. So once that time that she said that, Tina, in 2019, that just clicked in my head. And I was like, listen, if she can see that at 4 years old, and she's getting older now, I'm gonna step away. And if I told the judge right before she terminated my rights, this was like maybe about was in the last two hearings or the two appearances. I said, listen, if she knew at that age what a person should look like and what they shouldn't look like, then I'm gonna step away. I think that's what's in the best interest, because that's what you guys keep hollering for the last year in this trial. What's in the best interest for Lexi? Which I don't understand how taking my rights away is in the best interest, because you yelled at me when I disappeared for however long, and now you're gonna out of nowhere take me away from her when we're having extremely good visits after I told her she had a brother. She was a little iffy after that. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, and rightfully so, because it's confusing. She got taken away, she's with somebody else, and then I have another baby. I was mad at myself for having another child. And I couldn't really bond with him in the beginning because I felt awful. They kept saying, well, you chose, this is their words, you chose to secrete another child. Like he's some kind of, I don't know what, like, I twitched every time she said that. I secreted my child and you chose him over your daughter. Yeah. So the fucking word secrete. Sorry, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that word. Sorry. Can't make this up. Can't. So I'm trying. Let me find the thing right now of how she did what she said to me. So I'm looking for the transcripts. I got all of them right now, and I am actually going to post them within the next couple of days because we're over with this case, and even though we're in appellate court right now, everybody needs to see this. I'm not ashamed of what they said. You guys can ask me first of what's right and what's wrong. I might do I might do a podcast about it, but let me find it real quick. I'm sorry, Tina. I'm coming.
You're fine. Take your time.
I just had it. Remember, I was like, oh yeah, I found it. Yeah. Okay. I think this is it. Hold on. Okay. Let's see. So it started off saying, okay, so she said, the following constitutes the decision and order of the court. I take judicial notice of all the prior orders in the termination proceeding and in the underlying neglect matters. I take judicial notice of all prior pleadings and proceedings in this matter. I have considered the petition's exhibit and evidence and Ms. Perkins' exhibits and evidence, which was all the work I've done for 4 years. She even, before this statement that I'm about to read you, she even commended me for how far I've come and how proud she is of me, that I turned my whole life around and I did everything she asked. But she said, her exact words was said, it still isn't good enough. So I have presided over this matter since the underlying neglect matter was filed of the father, John Ballatini, who died of an overdose while he was in an inpatient rehabilitation facility. The court learned of this unfortunate event on or about January 13th. Okay, so they start talking about him and his overdose. It sounded like in the beginning he filed for petition, but that's not the case. I presided over this matter since the underlying neglect matter was filed of the father. Sorry, guys. Okay. So the TPR proceeding to show cause. Ultimately, I granted the order to show cause to the extent that I permitted the relative cousin, that's the one that had the lawyer that represented her. Wouldn't that be like, what is it called again? Conflict of interest, right? That would be, I would think so, right? Wait, hold on. What's that? Tina, can you hear me or no? Can you hear me?
I had my mic. I'm so sorry. I had my mic.
Sorry. No, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. That's right. No, you're good.
No, you're good. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's conflict of interest. Yeah.
I'm sitting here having a conversation with myself.
It's okay. I'm listening to you, and I thought you can hear me respond.
You're fine. Okay. So, all right, guys. So she said that she granted order to show cause, but denied the end of the application for intervenor status. The court had no contact for the attorney for the movement for too many months to even count. Or on or about February 15th of 2022, Ms. Perkins, me, informed the court that the paternal cousin who filed the custody passed away. You would think you would be on top of this after this whole TPR proceeding started. You want to hurry it up so this kid can get out of foster care and be adopted. Then you have this jerk that comes out of nowhere. You would think you keep tabs of what he's doing because you're the one who gave him. She gave him some kind of deadlines and stuff and gave him like some, special whatever privileges out of this case. Take your time, do this, whatever time you need. You think, like I said, keep tabs. And I was like, nobody know that this guy's dead. So anyway,
right.
It's awful. I'm going to go to hell for laughing at that. But anyway, the court had, okay. So then, let's see, hold on. So that goes on talking about the person that died. Okay, I issue a fact-finding order in this case on May 4th of 2022 and commence dispositional hearing on the same date. I determined that based upon the case law in the second department that I would conduct a consolidated hearing on the termination proceeding and on the custody proceeding. which was filed by maternal grandmother, which was my grandmother. Lexi's great grandmother of Miss Perkins, who is in the maternal. Okay, what I just said, great grandmother child, and her name is Marion Favre. Okay, let's see. So then they're saying, while not a dispositional remedy under Article 6 of the Family Court Act in connection with the dispositional hearing after a finding of permanent neglect, the case law and the Second Department supports combined dispositional hearings with custody proceedings. It is uncontroverted, I keep losing my spot, that the child has been continuously in care since on or about October 21st, 2017. Before this, let me back up, guys. Tina, before this happened, I think the appearance right before this or the one before that, they asked, this is awful, they asked the foster father, how old was Lexi when she came into care? And how old was she on this date? He couldn't even tell us. She was, I think something happened. I think they were bringing up like a certain incident that happened, and she was 4.
Was he under the influence at that time?
What happened?
I said, was he under the influence at that time? When he
I don't know. He had to be, because he said he was 2 years off, this guy. He was 2 years off. But that doesn't count towards anything. Anyway, so she has never been released to or trial discharged to either of her parents while the father was alive, or to her mother since she has been placed in foster care. Alexis has been in the care of Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan since she entered foster care, which was obviously their fault, because my grandmother, guys, applied for custody and foster care license and everything since the case started. The same day that they took me over to the courthouse after I got my warrant released, I had them call her, but they said since she's out of state, it's going to be more of a process. But everything was pretty much filed, approved, and everything ready to go by, I think May, or no, it was like September of 2018. She was supposed to come down here. That's when they said she was scared to get on a plane. That was strike. I don't understand how that's not strike one in their book against them. You know what I'm saying? So she was supposed to come here. They chose not to give her up. Okay, so so Alexis has been in the care of Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan since she's entered foster care. And it's only the only home in which she's ever been placed. The visits between Miss Perkins and the child have always been supervised. Okay, and visits have never moved to unsupervised visits during the pendency of this case. Never mentioned why it was never, even though I missed some of the visits, that doesn't constitute of not having unsupervised. I worked my ass off to get where, they asked me to, and still had some time over to, part of the case before they moved into the TPR. So I asked them to have her come down here. They never did. That's where they wanted the TPR. And I had at least 10 to 12 caseworkers, and nobody thought to file that until we got to the trial, when it's like too late now. Okay. It says the Sullivan household, consisting of Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan and their daughter and their family dog, can't forget the dog, I guess, there have never been reports of safety concerns about the care of the child while in the care of the Sullivans. There has actually, guys. I'm going to stop right there. So on October 18th of last year, I did have a concern with the foster father because we're having a visit, and then all of a sudden Lexi stands up, rocking back and forth. She looked a little weird. She's looking to her left. She's looking to her right, whatever. She mumbles something. I had my headphones in. I was like, what are you saying? She goes, oh, I have a hole in my vagina. So out of just freaking nowhere says it. We've never talked about body parts. We've never talked about anything like that. But she said it so low. And then when he comes into the room, I can see like on the shadow of the wall, because every time, I don't know if anybody else deals with this, every time anybody has a Zoom visit or whatever with their children, the foster parents will be like right here. They always want to see what the hell's going on, and they're
Just
part
being
of the.
nosy, not giving you any privacy, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So she said that. I said, Lexi, we don't talk about those things unless it hurts or like unless something happens, then you need to tell mommy. But I didn't get into it because I can't get into anything when he's standing right there because it will be taken to something else. So anyway, I bring it up to her therapist actually, and therapist told me, let me back up. I'm sorry. 2 days after this happened, and after I mentioned to the social worker, they tell me all of a sudden Lexi needs therapy. So you got this before all this, that photo. You have her saying this, and then 2 days later she needs therapy out of nowhere.
What did they suggest the therapy was for?
Oh, okay. So the therapy was because she has a vivid imagination. That really worried me. Because I'm putting it more of what where I'm going with this. She has a vivid imagination and she's making up things.
So is it in reference to, I mean, you don't have to answer this question or not, but I'm kind of thinking that's where it's steering to. Is it in reference to, okay.
That's what I took it as, or any other normal parent, worried parent would take it as. But I said, what exactly? Nobody has answered me to this day. I even writing emails after the case has ended. What did she say to suggest? Because you don't just wake up one day and say, hey, I want to put my kid back into therapy, because she already graduated from therapy, her play therapy. So she said, one of them made up something and said, the therapist said, oh, they were driving one day and saw, Lexi said she saw an aardvark driving. That's a bunch of baloney. That's a bunch of bullshit. I'm sorry. And I left it alone until we got to court and I started bringing this up. I had to read further down when I read it to you guys, but they never mentioned it again. Ever looked into it. I asked, I forgot who I wrote to. I asked a lawyer. I asked the people that are in charge of the foster care licenses. I asked them. I wrote to them. Nobody wanted to write to me. And nobody wanted to look into it. And, if we were to do something to our children, guys, where will we be again? We have those nice, shiny bracelets on.
Yeah, pretty much. Once they go into the foster care, into the CPS system, you don't have a right to question their authority or antics following suit, which is even more disturbing because especially when you see some things that are a little suspicious, you yourself as a parent, you have to sit back and it's like your own rights. You're being told that you, as that parent, are not allowed to involve yourself, say anything, include yourself, suggest anything. So it's as if they have already taken that, role away from you prior to just signing on a piece of paper, Yeah,
of course. Okay, so we're going to go. Okay, so it says, although Ms. Perkins maintained that Mr. Sullivan is a recovering alcoholic, and at that same point, the child said she had got a hole in her vagina. So they're going about what I said about the safety concerns. The credible testimony is that Mr. Sullivan is not an alcoholic because he says so. And the child reported that she had, hold on 1 second, this computer's freezing. That she
well, wait a minute. Typically, usually when there's allegations of drug and alcohol, like say for instance in your case, they demanded that you go to drug and alcohol. With the suspicion of him being alcoholic, did they? And I know this is a silly question, but with even the suspicion of him,
nothing.
Wow,
nothing.
Right? Of course not. Go ahead. Sorry.
And then when they said the other allegations about hole in her vagina, they said that Lexi said that she had a hole in her tights. She did eventually say that because I kept asking her over and over again, but she didn't want to repeat it because she thought she was in trouble. So I have it on video actually, so they didn't want to see it. The agency has initiated several ICPCs. You notice how they jump from that to the ICPCs? They don't mention about anything that they investigated anything. But I guess that's besides the point. Okay, so one for Miss Perkins and at least two for Miss Vavra. Actually, it's been 4. Okay, so again, as I noted, who Miss Vavra is. I'm sorry, I'm going down. It says, uh, so it says that Miss Vavra, Miss Perkins, and the child have resided together in South Carolina during the child's early years. Miss Vavra is seeking custody of the child. She has testified that Alexis belonged with her blood relatives and that she is willing to be a foster care resource or request an order of custody. It is uncontroverted that Ms. Vavra filed a prior custody petition, which was dismissed based upon her failure to appear in court. Mind you, we have all proof to show my grandma either appeared in court physically or over the phone. And we asked for the day that she failed to appear, even up until right before she gave this whole spiel of why I didn't get my daughter and why she's terminating everything. Still couldn't give me the date that my grandma supposedly missed. So then, you say you're not surprised? You would think we gave them at least, I guess, a year to come up with a date, but I guess it was too much for them. So she
gave me 2 more.
So it says that my grandma constantly filed for a subsequent petition, which was consolidated with the instant dispositional hearing on the permanent neglect. The petitioner presented the testimony of the case planner. Case planner and foster father, Mr. Sullivan. I credit their respective testimony. Ms. Perkins testified and Ms. Vavra testified at the dispositional hearing. And while I credit some of their testimony, I find that most of their testimony is self-serving and contrary to the weight of their evidence on this record. Because we keep saying that we think that she should be with us because she's blood and this and that. So we're not allowed. None of their stuff is self-serving. None of their stuff is self-serving. Okay.
But I mean, it's kind of funny that they actually put it that way, because technically it should be self-serving, being the fact that she is your daughter and she should return home, especially if not to you, then to her grandmother at least. Yeah. So yeah. Wow.
But like, I don't know. I haven't. This is the first time I'm reading this because I can actually get through it with you guys, because every time I read this, I would break down. So this is the first time. So bear with me. But they said, I don't know if it's going to be mentioned, but they said that it was self-serving and I was very selfish for not understanding and accepting my daughter wants to be with them because she loves them more. And that she can have family that's not blood. And my selfishness, and this is where it's coming. That's
not appropriate.
Yeah.
That's just not appropriate at all. I mean, we know that's unprofessional and on so many levels. The thing is that there's been cases where kids have been placed in foster care for a great many years, but when it ultimately comes down to it, family is family, blood is blood, and a child should be returned home. And even with trauma, even with great extensive amounts of trauma, when you have a parent that truly cares for their child, they have this bond in this relationship that they're able to overcome that. The child still might suffer some issues, of course, and still regain a relationship back with their child or children, and continue on living, and
you're breaking up, girl.
Grow with one another, and just become stronger with one another. So with no care at all, it's disgusting.
Well, out of all this happening, they eventually labeled my daughter, I'd never seen this happen, with an attachment disorder because of me and the trauma she faced. But I don't get it. I'm sorry for going off to the side. If supposedly they don't want to return her because she don't remember me and it's been too long, I don't understand how she can remember the trauma, but she can't remember me. That doesn't make any sense. It was so long ago.
Say, in fact, if it did, but let's say, in fact, if it did, right? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't they want?
You're breaking up, Tina.
To pursue some type of relationship? thing because she has her bond back with her. You know?
Yeah, I just don't.
You said I'm breaking up?
I got most of that, but I understand. No, I heard what you said, but I just
can't
don't
hear me. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. So you said, what was the last part you said about the bond? You said
I was just stating that, if that's how they felt that she was having this disorder, detachment disorder. Number one, it was caused because of her being taken and put into a completely different household that she does not know. That alone right there can cause the trauma.
Yeah.
But if they cared so much of her having this disorder,
they replaced her.
Why not allow you to be consistent in her life? Right. And again, like we said earlier, either with you or with your grandmother or with your mother.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course. And it's just like, besides the attachment disorder, her anxiety, they're saying her anxiety stems from me. But who is she with majority, if not all the time, actually all the time, for the last 4 or 5 years? Not me. So they have no kind of recourse or any kind of accountability with these people. And we already know that. So anyway, it said, okay, hold on. I'm sorry, guys. Ms. Perkins testified and Ms. Vavra testified at this dispositional hearing, as I, credit their testimony and find self-serving. Okay, we got there. It is uncontroverted that Ms. Perkins has completed her service plan and continues to engage in aftercare services. It is also uncontroverted that Ms. Perkins visits with the child on a fairly consistent basis. I see my daughter, I was seeing her in person before I left. I was seeing her twice a week. No, one time a week. It was supposed to be twice a week. They never gave me that, at least. It was supposed to be separate from her father. It wasn't. They violated that order, which I brought up in here, and they just dismissed it. But when I came down here, I haven't heard from them in 6 months. It took me 6 months to get a phone call back. They try to say that I neglected and I abandoned her. And that's why they never, not even my lawyer returned my phone call until I got a new lawyer with the same agency. And then I guess, that it just went from there. But anyway, my lawyer and everybody else said I only missed one visit on Zoom, and it was because of some technical issues. So that right there, I don't understand. So anyway, that was always not the norm in this case. There were periods of time that Ms. Perkins was out of touch with the agency and the child significantly after she relocated the first time to South Carolina. She was out of touch with the agency, never was out of touch with them. And while the underlying neglect proceedings were ongoing, there were lapses of months where the mother failed to visit the child. I failed to visit her, guys, for 3 months, and that was in the beginning in 2018 when I was being abused, and I was actually being sex trafficked in New York City by a guy that I was trying to get away from. So I didn't tell them all that because you know where that would have went. I don't even think we would have made it to the trial. Anyway, she was okay. So even after the filing of the termination proceedings, the mother initially failed to visit with the child on a regular basis and consistent basis. It's kind of hard to get to New York. They wanted me to come there at least twice a month. Then they said, okay, maybe once. During this pandemic, that's what they told me for the last 2 years. This is a COVID world. This is a pandemic world. Don't worry about in-person visits until we get to that point. And when I asked them about it, they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want nothing part of it. So it says, let's see. Okay. So Ms. Perkins testified at the fact-finding hearing that she did not visit the child initially under the neglect dockets because she was using drugs and did not want the child to see her in that condition. Ms. Perkins also failed to visit the child during the pendency of the underlying neglect docket when she was in an abusive relationship with another partner. Ms. Perkins contends that she has been clean and sober since September of 2019, which I've been sober for 3 years, September 20th. Well, September the 20th of this month, sorry. But they go on saying that I came up positive for opiates, heroin, cocaine, and alcohol. Fall of 2019. Actually, the latest date that they have is November. So they're trying to imply that I was still getting high when I was pregnant. But I have documentation everywhere else that I wasn't. Because I would have had a case against me too. So they even try to say that I was getting high with my daughter when I was pregnant with her, and I had documentation for that, and they failed to, I guess, look at it. All her intake information sheets with her South Carolina intake providers indicate in her own handwriting that as of January 2020, Ms. Perkins was drug-free for 1.5 to 2 years before January of 2020. In fact, in some of her service providers' reports, it is determined, hold on one second. It is determined that Ms. Perkins had an opioid use disorder, mild, early remission. Now, if that's the case, I feel I did not get my daughter because of all this, even after I did have so much positive in my, in my life right now, Tina. That should account to some kind of discrimination, wouldn't you think?
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. I'm sorry. But it just goes on, and there was one more thing I just wanted to say about this. Okay, here we're at the end. Okay, the dispositional hearing, the court enters a finding of permanent neglect, and in connection with a petition for custody, the court must determine that it promotes the best interest of the child. Here, the child has been in foster care since 2017 and lived in the home of Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan without any reported safety concerns. We already went through that there was. She has become part of their household and family and has reported she wants to become a Sullivan. The overriding goal of any child protective proceeding is family reunification. That's a bunch of bull. With that in mind, a parent is expected to, and within a reasonable time, to apply, come to terms with the conditions that precipitated the child's placement in foster care. Here, while Ms. Perkins learned she was pregnant in fall of 2019, she did not inform the agency of the pregnancy. She relocated to South Carolina and was absent herself from New York. She gave birth to her child, Jackson, I believe, on or on about July 20th. I count that for 19 months, Ms. Perkins finally disclosed the birth of the child, and at the time, because I directed an ICPC, try to say that that's the only reason why I said I had my child, but as I said earlier to you guys, that wasn't the case. Ms. Perkins was initially afraid to disclose the existence because of fear that the child would be removed. She finally made disclosure. The agency placed the call down here, everybody, so that they would come and check the house out and ultimately take my child away. But South Carolina jumped in and intercepted and said, we're not going to even go there because we already checked her out in the beginning when she told us she had a case with you guys and there's nothing going on. I had people call me twice down here. What was that?
I was going to say, wasn't there a point in time that they threatened, you to, what I said wasn't because you had him, like it was like they gave you an ultimatum. I think I remember you telling me that many months ago, where it was like, you need to bring yourself down here, and they
were gonna arrest me. Yeah, they were gonna arrest me. Yeah.
So thank God that you said, where were you that had jumped in and intervened?
When I was down here, this was just not too long ago when they did the ICPC. They found out as soon as I told the workers, hey, I got to be honest with you. I'd rather come from me. And I told them, this is why I didn't keep this from you. I mean, yes, I was scared, but Tina, I told everybody I had a child. I told South Carolina. I told other people in New York, all my providers. That's not my fault. Y'all didn't want to communicate with each other, because if you would have got my records on time, like you guys were supposed to, and, evaluate them and do whatever and follow up, you would have saw I had a son 2 years ago. Do you understand? So, I wasn't hiding anything. But, but pretty much she just goes on and on. I lost it. I'm not going to go back into it right now. She goes that about being self-serving, our statements, and the fact that we're selfish, and I have lack of insight, and that just she just rambles on and just keeps going in a circle. The same stuff. It's pretty much biased opinions about me. She doesn't like me, and there was no reason not to give her to my grandmother. So right now we're in the appellate division, the second division in New York. It took 2 months to get the order, the notice of appeal to be signed, to put in their their database or whatever. And
do you have a court date set yet, or no?
No, I don't even have a court date. I have a lawyer. Finally, after 2 months, they got someone assigned to me. And it's funny. Before we wrap up, I asked the lawyer, the new lawyer, I was like, listen, I can't get all my transcripts. Everything that I, usually do is free because I constitute as someone of Navy families. I'm getting a court-appointed lawyer. What makes you think I can pay for transcripts?
Well, the lawyers are supposed to actually provide that for you. They're obligated to do that.
I did tell them, I did mention that. So then this is the second lawyer says, first they say, oh, I've never had anybody that wanted their transcripts, because I don't even think that's the case, is because most people don't know how to get their transcripts.
Or that they can't even have them. Yeah.
Yes. So I said, I don't have the means, the money to do whatever. Everybody thinks because I work a little bit, I should have all this money to go see my daughter, go get the transcripts, everything. That's not the case. So she said, well, I'll give you my briefs after I read them, and I draw up my briefs for all these lawyers, and for all the judges.
That's not the same thing, though.
Yeah, I was like, I know what briefs are. I was like, aren't briefs like kind of like your summary of everything? And she goes, yeah. I was like, I don't want a summary. I want to see finally after 5 years what the hell everything else was in the court system about me. Right. So anyway, she gave me a timeline, and it's sad. It says they're still working on pre-pandemic cases, and it might take 2 years just to get on the top of the pile, or a year, and then it's going to take another year. So my child's going to be 8 in January. My child might be 11, 12 years old. Possibly, maybe she'll come home. That's if she comes on, if it's approved. So that's where we're at right now. But I'm trying to write letters and do not be a sitting duck, guys. You can't. If you sit and give time and have time to have your mind just start thinking, you're gonna go backwards. Trust me. I don't care if you need to, if when you get to this point, or any kind of point where in the case, you have to work on yourself. You don't work on yourself, you're going to be a zombie. You're going to be on like autopilot, which I was, and you're going to find a different side of you never knew you had. And, we're part of all these groups. You guys can reach out to me, Tina, anybody. You need to start getting your story out there as much as you can without violating any kind of orders or anything like that. But most importantly, besides getting your story out there, even privately and meeting new people, because that's how I learned everything. Once I learned everything about family court, now I got to learn everything about Supreme Court. So, but, you start building a network and everything like that. And that's what pretty much saved me, so that's where we're at right now. I'm not giving up. I'm going to write a letter. My daughter just started school yesterday. On the 8th. That broke me down, seeing everybody's kids go to school and all those back to school pictures. And my daughter was a little thing. She was 2 years and 9 months. And now she's talking about stuffing her bra or stuffing her whatever and makeup and highlights and stuff and getting piercings. That's still too old for her, but she's growing up in a house that it's free range parenting. That's to each its own, but not with my child. I had her, not them. So, but that's where we're at right now. This is why I am trying to start that nonprofit, our journey towards justice, and that's why I have this support group. It's amazing how far it's come and how many people I've met. It's almost at 1,000 people right now.
And what was the name of the support group again? I'm sorry.
I just changed it before. It's hashtag legally kidnapped support group for parents battling hold on, support group for parents battling CPS and family court / family court. I know it's a mouthful, sorry, but I kept it separate because I started seeing everyone like you and everybody else, once their pages started flourishing, then bam, it's gone. So I made 2 pages with 2 different names. So,
and it's hard work. People don't understand. Be prepared that if you are going to do something like this, to be an advocate or, you know, even raise awareness, it is hard work, you know, but it's a healing process as well. Like Jaclyn was saying, you know, it keeps your mind focused on, you know, not only your prize, which are your children, but, you know, on the prize of helping other people, you know, and I think that alone right there is worthwhile.
yeah, before you help other people, I don't mean to cut you off. Before you help anybody else, you need to help yourself first, because that's the mistake I did. When I first got into my trial, I was helping everybody out here, and then it was my turn to help myself. No, first of all, nobody was nowhere to be found, and second of all, I was screwed. I was running out of time. So remember to always take care of yourself. It's okay to be a little bit of selfish. So
right. Yeah, you're 100% right. You know, self-healing is key. You need your own energy and strength in order to, you know, get the ball rolling for your own child or children. Again, anyone that is first starting out and dealing with a case out there are plenty of advocates out there, really good ones. I always recommend that, you know, if you become friends with somebody or become part of a group, you know, search who's in those groups. Look at other people's stories, look at comments. You know, it is a lot of work, yes, but in order for you to learn, you know, and gain resources and friends, in a partnership, and, you know, warriors, because that's what we all are. You know, we're all warriors. We all have our own stories, and our children one day are going to have their own stories. And we need to give them a voice. You know, they can't stand up for themselves. And the only thing we can do right now is not only fight, but tell your story. I get some people that call me and say, hey, I want to do a podcast. Okay, no problem. You know, I push my day aside and I talk to them. We find out, you know, they'll ask me again, well, what's the point of doing a podcast? What's the point of telling your story? You can benefit a lot from telling your story, because again, like I said in the beginning of the show, is that not a lot of people that are not dealing with our situations understand that this is very real. You know, this is a very real topic. This is a very real situation. It's happening. It's truth. It's just like you see things on, you know, the news, and you can't believe it's going on until you actually see it. You know,
when growing up, correct me if I'm wrong, like growing up, when I think it was BCW back in the day in New York, I think, but when people get their kids taken away, what would you think automatically? That they were in the wrong. Yeah. We would never think, hey, this might be some corruption going on. You're not thinking like that.
Yeah.
So,
yep. Yeah, 100%. And again, you don't realize when you're in the situation, you think you're alone, because it feels that way. They become very intimidated. They make you feel as if you have no chance, as if nobody's going to fight for you. They also make you feel as if you are 100% wrong, and no matter what you do, the battle is already won, and they're the winners. But there are a great many cases where people do stand up and fight. Not only do they stand up and fight, but they protest, they have events, they raise awareness, you know, they become advocates themselves, and they actually prosper. And these are people that are willing for free. You know, there are some people that might charge, but at a reasonable price. It all depends. Make sure you do your homework before you involve yourself with these people.
Look up their credentials, look up their background and everything.
Yes, there are some scammers out there, and they do a very good job. But anyways, there are many people out there that can help. Beautiful women that I have met so far. I give a lot of credit to anyone that is going through it and still going through it and is still willing to help others and raise awareness, and just steer people in the right direction. Because again, like we said earlier, we're not educated. They're not going to educate us. They're not going to give us the resources to educate us, because if they did, ultimately their plan would be stomped on and crushed right from the beginning. Right. So just remember that CPS are not your friends. So don't open your mouth about things that you shouldn't or shouldn't have. If there's something they're bringing up to you and they're saying, this happened in the past, well, what happened? They're trying to build a case against you. Do not give them that leverage. You don't have to answer certain questions. You don't have to do certain things. Educate yourself depending on what state you're in.
It's not always bad to tell them no, and they make it seem like it is. They're not going to kill you. They're not going to hurt you. They can't. I don't know. It's just awful. It's like once you start getting involved with all these people, I never knew even like a third of all the stuff I know now. And how I start meeting people is I add a couple of people and I see, oh, you have like 20 mutual friends with me. Okay, I'll add this one. And it just starts from there. And it's crazy how much all these people know.
And check the groups they're in. Yeah, check the group, because there might be a group that maybe you're not a part of, and that might be a little bit more beneficial to you as well.
Yes.
So again, thank you so much, Jaclyn. I appreciate you coming back.
Oh, and I forgot to tell you, I started thinking about what I can do for my daughter, of like how she could eventually know that I was still thinking about her. And people tell me to write letters to her every day, which I think is awesome. I take little video clips. I don't post all of them up on here because they're private. But I thought what was a good idea was, I do a lot of writing. I was published one time before. Writing a book for kids in foster care. So when they do go and have their visits with their parents, when they're supervised, that they can read the books together about, I don't know the title, but like how their mother loves them, their daddy loves them during different situations and stuff like that. I just think, that's what I'm starting on too, is, writing, getting those books, the children's books.
I think that's an awesome idea. We have a lot of negative influence in our shows and media, which is another topic for something else some other time, hopefully. But I think more positive reinforcement, especially in dealing with the minors and the younger children, it would be a little bit more beneficial, because believe it or not, there's a lot more than some that are in foster care and taken away from their homes. It's like, and I hate to say this, it's 2022, and kids nowadays are so used to other children saying, well, I don't have a mommy or I don't have a daddy. You know what I mean? Yep. Like back in my day in the 80s, it was like, wait a minute, it was always a mommy and a daddy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You barely ever heard anyone saying that I was growing up with one parent. But nowadays, it's more like there's more kids in the system. There's more kids being ripped away.
It's normalized.
Yeah, right. So again, thank you so much, Jaclyn. Guys, please check out her petition on change.org. Am I saying it right?
Change.org. Yeah.
.com. Sorry. And we did attach it in the podcast. Also, I have a petition myself called Malachi's Law. Malachi's Law is designed specifically to protect domestic violence and child abuse victims in the family court system, because we are pegged as criminals, and us protective parents do not have rights for some reason when the abusers and narcissists get involved. So please check that out. Now that is on care2.com. Again, it's called Malachi's Law, and I will later on edit it into the podcast. Also, you can follow me on WRTV4 at YouTube, or on YouTube. That's the channel. These podcasts will automatically be uploaded on there as well. You guys got to give me a minute. I did have quite a few other podcasts, but again, like I said earlier, somebody had infiltrated a group and tore down one of my original We Are the Voice page. So we are starting from scratch, but we'll get there. God is good. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Jaclyn, and I appreciate keep me updated. If hopefully there's good news in the future, we can do another podcast, and that alone will give. I hope just even someone listening will get a little inspiration to see that, even through all your trouble and your strife, you're still willing to, kind of be out there and put yourself out there,
Mhm.
and continue fighting not only for your daughter, but fighting for other people as well. You've done an amazing job, and you've really come a long way.
Thank you.
So I know I give you a lot of respect for that.
Thank
All
you.
right, guys, everybody, thank you so much, Warriors. I love you.
Thank you,
Have a good night.
everyone.
Tina Salinas from You're the Voice for the Silence and Afflicted.
Bye.